I'm going to talk about arrest. The law relating to arrest is set down at section 24 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984 and also at Code G, section 2 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984. This video concerns arrest without a warrant. So it doesn't concern a warrant issued, for example, by a court to bring an individual to court who has failed to attend or has allegedly breached bail. This concerns the power given to the police to arrest an individual without a warrant. So a lawful arrest will require two distinct elements. The first element is the commission of some sort of an offence. And the second element requires reasonable belief that an arrest is necessary. Both elements are required in order for an arrest to be lawful. So the first element is that an individual is either suspected of committing an offence, or is suspected of being about to commit an offence, or is suspected of having committed an offence in the past or is doing so right now. If that element is made out, then the second element is whether or not a constable has reasonable grounds for believing that an arrest is necessary. So even if the police suspect that the individual has committed an offence, or even if the individual has committed an offence, it's still necessary to consider the second element, which is an arrest still necessary? Or can it be dealt with, for example, by way of voluntary interview, voluntary attendance? Is it still necessary to arrest the individual? So to consider the first element, under section 24 of PACE, there are 5 subsections. Subsections 1 to 4 concern the commission of the offence, whether, for example, an offence has been committed, whether an offence is about to be committed, whether an offence is being committed right now, whether the police have reasonable grounds to suspect that the individual concerned has committed the offence. The second element, subsection 5 of section 24, then goes on to list the reasons that must be present in order for an arrest to be necessary. So to consider first, section 24, subsections 1 through 4. Under section 24, subsection 1, a constable may arrest without a warrant A, anyone who is about to commit an offence, or B, anyone who is in the act of committing an offence, or C, anyone whom he has reasonable grounds for suspecting to be about to commit an offence, or D, anyone whom he has reasonable grounds for suspecting to be committing an offence. So you see that under section 24, subsection 1, the first power available to a constable to arrest without a warrant concerns offences that are happening right now or are about to happen. Subsection 2 and 3 then deal with offences or suspected offences that may have happened in the past. So under section 2, if a constable has reasonable grounds for suspecting that an offence has been committed, he may arrest without a warrant anyone whom he has reasonable grounds to suspect of being guilty of it. And under section 3, if an offence has been committed, a constable may arrest without a warrant A, anyone who is guilty of the offence, or B, anyone whom he has reasonable grounds for suspecting to be guilty of it. As a generalisation, I suspect that most matters would come under section 24, subsection 3b. So offences that are suspected of being committed in the past and that the constable has reasonable grounds to suspect that the individual may have committed the offence. That is where I consider most justification for an arrest is to be found. Section 24, subsection 4, then gives a restriction on the power to arrest, which is that the power to arrest is then only available if one or more of the requirements under Section 5 are then made out. So to consider Section 5 is split down A, B, C, D, E and F. So to consider these in turn, the reasons to justify reasonable grounds for believing that the arrest is necessary. Section 5A is to enable the person's name in question to be ascertained. In the case where the constable does not know and cannot readily ascertain the person's name or has reasonable grounds for doubting whether a name given by the person as his name is his real name. Section 24, subsection 5b then provides as a reasonable ground for arrest concerns as to whether or not the police can readily identify the individual's address. It's to enable the address of the person in question to be ascertained. Section 25, subsection 5c then allows for a person's arrest to be necessary to prevent the person in question causing physical injury to himself or any other person, or suffering physical injury, or causing loss of or damage to property, or committing an offence against public decency, or causing an unlawful obstruction of the highway. Section 24 of PACE subsection 5d then gives reasonable grounds for believing that the person's arrest is necessary to include to protect a child or other vulnerable person from the person in question. Section E is to allow the prompt and effective investigation of the offence or of the conduct of the person in question. And Section 24(5)(f) is to prevent any prosecution for the offence from being hindered by the disappearance of the person in question. So under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, Code G, Section 2, a lawful arrest requires two elements: a person's involvement or suspected involvement or attempted involvement in the commission of a criminal offence, and reasonable grounds for believing that the person's arrest is necessary. Both elements must be satisfied, and it can never be necessary to arrest a person unless there are reasonable grounds to suspect them of committing an offence. So in summary, the police have the power to arrest individuals without a warrant, provided that there is some sort of criminal offence and provided that there is a reasonable belief that the arrest is necessary. So even if an individual is suspected of committing an offence, or indeed even if an individual has committed an offence, it's still necessary for the police to meet the second element, which is that it's necessary to arrest them. So if it can be dealt with in another way, it may not be lawful to arrest even if they are suspected of committing an offence.